Dearest reader, the time has come to place our bets for the upcoming social season. In these months of courtship and courage, tenacity and tension, frustration and frivolity, and dare we even mention or dream of romance, London's marriage-minded misses are presented to Her Majesty the Queen before they begin to play the greatest game of our fine ton, where knights and queens alike dart about the chessboard. Queen Charlotte's watchful eye sees all, a glimmer of displeasure, and a young lady's value plummets to unthinkable depths. Society is watching you, now more than ever. My name is Lady Whistledown. You do not know me, and rest assured you never truly shall. But be forewarned, dear reader, I certainly know you. Hello and welcome to Flights of Fandom, the show where we create Flights of Fandom, improvised fanfiction where we use our favorite tabletop role-playing games to tell stories in our favorite verses. My name is Marissa. I use she, her pronouns and go by Critical Kitten most places on the internet, and I will be your scribbler, or rather your facilitator this evening. Tonight, we will be telling our salacious tale using Good Society, a Jane Austen RPG system by Storybrewers Roleplaying, a highly collaborative role-playing game that uses narrative currency instead of dice. And to top it all off, our rendition of this classic tale will take place in and use the narrative stylings of the Bridgerton verse. Welcome, one and all, to Bridgerton, Dearest Reader. But what would any social season be without its dramatis personae? I am delighted to introduce you to my cast of players. So let's go around the table and give your name, pronouns, where we can find you on the socials, and the name of the major character and connection you'll be playing today. Don't worry, we will introduce the major characters in more detail a bit later, but for now, let's start with Marcy.
Hey everyone, I'm Marcy, aka Experimental Madness, which is the username you can find me most places around the internet, except for Twitter, where I remain the resident cryptid, but technically you can find me under the username Marsful. Who knows when I'll ever be on there again, but you might get lucky. Tonight, I'm very excited to be playing in this flight. I'm playing Lady Sloan Atherton. That's the main character that I'm playing, and then I will be playing Rivka Birnbaum for the connections.
Fabulous, fabulous. Going around, I suppose, next to you on the lovely overlay, Zach, could you introduce us to Henry?
Absolutely.
And introduce yourself also, because that's important.
I'll do just. Guys, my name is Zach. I go by Great Samino here on the socials. I use he, him pronouns, and I am delighted to play tonight Lieutenant Henry Wyeth, the young successor to the Wyeth family and returning veteran, our resident careerist. And I will also be playing the connection of Priscilla Willoughby, which should be fun.
Fabulous. And up to our intrepid producer, David.
Hey there, folks. David here, he, him. I'm a graphic designer, an illustrator, and a game designer. Check out my tabletop RPGs over at dbb-8.itch.io. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at dbrunelbrutman. I am currently twiddling with the video and audio for this stream in the background, so please excuse that as I look off to the side. But when I'm not doing that, I will be playing Percy George, Earl of Devonshire, in addition to one Marcus Mayweather.
Fantastic. And finally, last but not least, rounding out our lovely cast and new to Flights of Fandom, please welcome Chloe.
Hello, I'm Chloe, she, her. You can find me at Chloe Sobel on Twitter or Fiercefully on itch.io. I will be playing Sidonie Birnbaum as my major character and George Bailey as my connection.
Fantastic. This is Bridgerton, dear reader. Before we dive in, first a word about the collaborative nature of the game. For those of you who have seen the Good Society on the channel before, this will all be old news. In fact, this table has all played Good Society before, but for those who may be watching and are less familiar with the system, I thought we would go through it. Unlike a standard TTRPG where a GM crafts a world that players navigate, we are all going to be working together as co-authors, which means that there is no narrative power that I as facilitator have that my players don't have. My function is primarily to serve the story by keeping an eye on pace and the flow of scenes, and to try to tease out elements of character and story that could make our game richer. What this means, however, is you'll see us talking a lot together between ourselves to suggest things for each other's characters, connections, thematic narrative pivots, etc. Instead of rolling dice, players can influence the story by using a narrative currency that is called resolve tokens, which can be spent to dramatically change the story or impact another character in a big way. This could be a leaked character secret or, an obstruction that changes a plot element, something of that variety. Negotiation takes place during the exchange of resolve tokens as a safeguard of consent and ensures that everyone is on board with the proposed changes to the story. While significant changes they do, of course, come at the cost of a resolve token. Others that have minor influence over the game, like, can we say this Vitamin String Quartet cover is playing at the ball? Do not require a resolve token. Unless you guys want to fight that out and exchange a resolve token, in which case I will not stop you. We will be aiming to complete 2 full cycles of the play over the course of 4 episodes. And we're going to see what happens, because that's the beauty of this game. The bulk of our role-playing takes place in what's called novel chapters. These come in 2 varieties: event chapters, where the whole cast of characters is together, and visitations, which are generally one-on-one scenes. There's also a sort of hybrid third model where you can have kind of part of one, part of the other, which I believe is called hybrid, but that is also an option. During the epistolary phase, we write letters to one another. It is what it says on the tin. Players in connections can write letters to whomever they want, or they can compel someone to write them or someone else a letter with a resolve token. These will lead into our second novel chapter, and we will follow through the cycle of play. We will have what's called an upkeep phase between the 2 cycles of play, where you can adjust your desires and kind of prepare for the second half of the narrative. And then we will conclude, once we get there at the very end of the flight, with an epilogue. Other mechanical thing to note, monologue tokens, which is one of my favorite parts of the system, as anyone who's heard me give long monologues about monologues can attest. Everyone starts with 1 token, and you can spend it at any time during the game to force another character to have a spotlight moment and share their inner monologue during a particular moment, current or past, out loud. If you still have your token by the end of the cycle of play, you are forced to use it in the final scenes that everyone gets a chance to monologue. So upkeep is when we will address that if anyone still has their monologue token at that time. As alluded to, everyone is playing a connection, a character that has a relationship to one of our main characters, and a couple of Bridgerton-esque changes. I will also be playing some NPCs. I know, NPCs in Good Society. What is that? From the Bridgerton verse, who will appear at balls. And in one case, the case of one Miss Penelope Featherington, there is an attached mechanical element to her presence. As I've told the players, you can assume that Penelope is at most social events, particularly ones being thrown by such personages of high renown as this delightful cast. And if you are to disclose something deliberately within proximity of Penelope, she will capture it as Lady Whistledown, and it will appear on the rumor and scandal sheet. So consider that a way to trigger a free rumor and scandal, or a rumor that you're putting into that sheet outside of the normal phase. So bear that in mind. Prior to the stream, also, we did collaboration and backstory, which are generally the 2 phases that begin Good Society. We decided during those phases that we are playing a romantic comedy with a touch of farce, that the gender power balance is historical, and that there is no hidden information. We also said that we're going to be kind of in the middle on trying to get historical accuracy right, but we have interpreted that as sort of accuracy to the source material. We will try to get it right where it counts, but we won't stop play to make sure something is, directly consistent with the Bridgerton verse, although we have Chloe as resident Bridgerton expert in case we need to check a detail with the story. Now that that is through, are there any questions from the cast or things that I should elaborate on? All right, then let's play. We begin our tale with a Taun preparing for a ball. The camera swoops in over the gables of London, and you see Grosvenor Square, 1813, appear over the title as the camera swoops down, and you see a bustling Taun making preparations for a ball to celebrate the return of a young military hero. We first see preparations taking place at one home of Mr. Well, I shouldn't say Mr., should I? I should say Lord Devonshire. Percy.
Yes, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing to prepare, and who you are.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, we see a very well appointed townhome off this prominent square in London. I think it's very clear that this is a sort of well maintained residence. Everything is freshly painted. The wallpaper is new, and there are just absolute bevy of servants bustling in and out in all directions as they prep for the evening's festivities. I think it's not early. It's definitely not early in the day at this point, but we are going to move up a couple of flights to Percy's bedroom, where we see the Earl sort of close in, sprawled out in a bed. He is a younger man in his early 20s. He has a sort of curly mop of tousled hair, very sort of romantic poet in that style. And I am going to have to introduce him waking up, rolling over to sort of eye the person in bed next to him as he attempts to figure out who this woman is. Nothing is immediately coming to mind, so he is going to, with a groan, roll out of bed. His butt, it looks good. He's got a good butt. we get a nice view of those marble cheeks. He is the sort of person who only remains in good physical shape because he is young, and anybody who knows him knows that within just a few years, if he keeps on the way he's keeping on, that beautiful butt is right out of here. and he is going to slip on a shirt, and maybe manage to pull on a pair of breeches nearby. Again, looks over at the bed. Housemaid, probably a housemaid. It's got to be a housemaid, right? Excuse me. And he is actually going to take like a candle snuffer from the side and poke at the person in the bed. Yes, it's time for you to leave. Thanks very much and all that. Yes, come on. Yes, right. All right. Yes, have a good day. Get back to whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. And a clearly equally confused, but for very different reasons, housemaid is going to scramble her way out of the bedroom as Percy turns to the double French doors open to the balcony, places hands on the railing, taking a deep breath, and look out over early afternoon London.
Percy, do you remember that you're throwing a ball this evening?
Not unless someone were to remind me. But I'm sure there's something I must be doing this evening. I'm usually doing something in the evening. Did something in the evening last night.
You always have evening tasks, that's true. Always have social events to be attending, whether or not they're in your own home or not.
Yeah, so
Delightful.
Percy has absolutely no immediate memory that he's throwing a ball, though I'm sure he'll figure it out in very short order.
Probably when the ton starts appearing. That might be one clue, yes. And we're off to the races, folks, this is Bridgerton. Gotta start with marble cheeks. Let's have the camera pan over and go to another very well-to-do villa, the Atherton home. Lady Sloan, would you like to tell us about yourself and how you are preparing for tonight's festivities?
I think there's a bustle of activity in the Atherton's estate here in London. And I think it starts with a couple of double doors bursting open and a young woman wrenching off a fencing helmet and exclaiming to the two servants that are trailing behind her, "I won't be caught dead in that man's house. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I will not, shall not, and frankly won't be seen in that barbarian's company again." Is that clear? You see, right now, fairly sweaty, very haggard woman with remarkably short hair that clearly does not match the proper way a woman or a lady should be styling her hair. It's a very androgynous looking woman, immensely just impeccable sharp cheekbones and very fierce dark eyes, just staring out there as she's brandishing her rapier, quite literally in the face of some of these poor hapless maidservants that are just trying to take all of her her dirty fencing equipment away from her. And she's like hastily walking through the expansive hallways, divesting herself of her materials and her clothing, just ripping off the vest and just tossing the helmet, forcibly chucking the rapier so that it sticks straight into some sort of expensive cabinet she could care less about. She's like, "I don't care if the bloody Queen of England is going to be there. I won't be there. Is that clear?" And she's just muttering to herself now as she's walking up to her room, and she's forcibly pulling open cabinets, pulling out dresses, pulling out skirts to change into. She grabs like some towel that's hanging off the rack and like quickly musses up her sweaty hair and mops up her face as she's been engaging in some light exercise. I'm actually curious if Sidonie is here in the house.
I was going to say, I think, well, this is up to you, Chloe, but I imagine if the ball is tonight and if Sidonie's going, it would make sense for Sidonie to be at the Atherton estate.
Indeed. She's probably already in Sloane's room trying to get things together for her friend who she is now, Sidonie is there to help so that Sloane doesn't forget that she exists or stop paying attention to her.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Sidonie? Who do we see as the camera kind of follows Sloane charging into her room?
Yeah, we see a young woman in her early 20s with long blonde hair that she has not yet put up for the evening, sort of rustling around in a dresser drawer. She moves like someone who is trying to be as unobtrusive as possible. And there's something about her that although she is a cute young woman, your eyes just kind of slide off her a little bit, the camera paying attention to her for longer than a normal person on the street would. And she's very clearly not dressed as finely as any of the things that she's surrounded by. She's not dressed like a working class woman, but she's also not in the same quality of clothes as a lady like Sloane will be shortly.
So they sent you up here to put me in that bird cage of a dress and forcibly see that I march myself off to purgatory.
Well, you can't blame them.
I certainly shall. I must blame somebody.
Well, not me.
Not you, darling.
No.
I never said you. But you are here to make sure I put that on, are you not? And so I stop abusing the servants and stop throwing swords into more mahogany wood cabinets.
Well, you should stop doing both of those things anyway. You don't want to damage them permanently, the servants or the cabinets. But
the cabinets being more replaceable than the servants, surely you don't suggest that I start throwing my swords into them.
Well, no, but you don't really look where you're going when you start throwing those swords. And so I'm fairly certain at least a maid or two has been singed by the tip of your épée once or twice.
Oh, then I better work on my aim.
Or just watch where you're going.
Whichever comes first. I don't have a choice, do I?
No, you really don't.
No.
You wouldn't make me go by myself, would you?
Don't guilt me. I already feel guilty enough. You've got me worried about servants missing fingers now.
I didn't say that. Just
well, now I can't stop picturing
cut.
I suppose I can't just make a different appearance tonight.
I'm afraid not.
All right. Stuff me into this overripe cantaloupe of a dress before I change my mind.
Maybe if you just start comparing it to another fruit or something. It's really not the same shade as a cantaloupe.
Watermelon, then. Which would you prefer? I'm going to feel like pumpkin in it.
She begins to lay Sloane into the dress.
Brilliant. I love these two already. Oh, the best of friends. Which I think takes us, as the evening hours begin, much I'm sure to Percy's surprise, the Taun starts to arrive at his doorstep. Carriages, footmen letting swarm, well, a whole drove of people in fine clothing, many of whom titled, others of whom hoping maybe one day to be titled or to be matched with someone who is, right on to his doorstep. Percy, how does this make you feel?
At this point, I think enough time has elapsed that Percy has recalled that he agreed to throw a ball for his friend's return from the wars. And we probably see him coming down the stairs, for the most part, fully dressed. Maybe just sort of loosely tying off his cravat as he comes down the stairs. Now that he is dressed, we can certainly see that this is a man for whom tying one's cravat while running down the stairs or walking down the stairs at a brisk trot is sort of part and parcel of his whole deal. He's a man of intense sprezzatura, and to look as though even if he had spent 15 minutes in front of a mirror tying this cravat, it would look as though he had tied it while happening to take a brisk trot down the stairs. So he is putting on an air of being absolutely unbothered by anything around him, and will begin to greet people as they come in. He's a gracious host, or so he fancies himself.
And you wouldn't want to get written up by Lady Whistledown for throwing a party that was not just the pinnacle of perfection, now would you?
No, certainly not. If I'm going to get written up by Lady Whistledown, it's going to be for something worthwhile, damn it.
We have a Whistledown fan, it seems. Speaking of our guest of honor, Lieutenant Henry Wyeth, are you early, on time, or late for your own ball?
I think that Henry is, I think that in better days, Henry may have been absolutely completely on time, or not on time, but early. But I think that by virtue of the fact that he has required a little bit of extra time to arrange his military dress, his kind of decorative attire, the sash, making sure it hangs just right, he would actually be taking the time, and I think probably deliberating with himself and kind of like, I think probably trying to assure himself of the importance of maintaining appearances as he was getting ready, and thus is arriving precisely on time. I think even if there were a veritable clock that began to tone, it would tone, the very first ding would mark Henry's arrival.
Military man through and through.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the camera pans away from Percy and toward Henry walking up the front walk towards the door, what do we see? Who do we see?
You see a very young, very kind of thin and a slender, not quite lean young man. He has very kind of sharp cheekbones. He has a very kind of delicate, very clean-shaven face, but you can tell that there is one kind of feature that seems to buck the trend of military cleanliness and put-togetherness of this otherwise spotless attire, is a hair that's a little bit longer, almost getting towards shoulder length, but is just kind of like pinned back behind his ears, very neatly trailing down the back of his neck. And that would be probably the most salacious thing of his appearance if it weren't for the fact that one of the arms of his coat, his lieutenant's jacket, has been truncated and pinned, as he has been found himself disabled by his time in the war because of his injuries, and is no less kind of put together and fastidious in dress because of it. And he is moving very deliberately, very steadfastly into the entrance hall. But anybody who is looking very closely sees that there is a trepidation there.
Perfect. Now, as we are entering a ball, it seems only appropriate to begin by each contributing a detail to what we are finding at this particular ball. And Percy, because you are throwing it, we're going to start with you.
All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think what's an interesting detail to contribute here. Let's say that the Earl has a notably well appointed ballroom at his London home. This is a very high ceilinged room, and it is festooned with candelabras around the wall, but the most notable feature is an absolutely massive gilded chandelier in the center of the room that is simply ablaze. If this thing falls, this house is just going up like that.
Don't threaten me with a good time. Falling chandeliers, love that.
Yeah. So we have a mirrored ballroom, which is just incredibly bright from the light of all of these candles.
Fabulous. Mercy, add a detail for us.
To the ball or just to the overall house?
Anything. It can be a specific place that there is in the home. It can be something that's happening at the ball, something that's being served at the ball, or it can be something about the tenor of the ball, the people there.
Since this is not Sloane's first time at Percy's family's house, I think she's aware of some slight secret passages that can take you from point A to point B a lot faster and unseen. And it may or may not be possible that she's used some of those before. Most of them end up in other bedrooms.
Love a good secret passage. Wonder what that might be used for. Amazing. And Chloe.
I'm going to say that there is a greenhouse behind the townhouse itself. And as a result, the ballroom and the terrace outside are festooned with loads of out-of-season flowers. Just really showing off what beautiful flowers you can grow when you have the time, opportunity, and heating available to you.
I mean, I think that does make sense for Percy to just have impeccable taste in flowers. I don't know what you think about that, David, but really good greenhouse.
Well, yeah, certainly. The gardener mostly takes care of it, but I supervise from time to time.
Clearly, a lot of it is very much, success is owed to you. And finally, on the details, Zach, give us a detail.
I think that there is one room in the house that Henry has always been drawn to within Percy's abode, and I think that this is something that I think I want to give you an option here, just what makes most sense for the character, whether it's, you know, a detail left over, a room left over from the family, or or perhaps something that better reflects Percy. Is it a study or a game room, i.e. hunting game room, that your family or you have arranged in your home that has made that has been a favorite stop or place of respite for Henry?
I'll give you this one that I think connects up nicely. Percy's father, the old Earl of Devonshire, was a not a sailor's the wrong word. But a captain, a naval a naval personage, and Percy has essentially maintained his study untouched, because it is filled with naval equipment, books, charts, globes, sextants, all manner of naval accoutrements, which Percy says he has no interest in whatsoever, and he doesn't care about. He cares about them so little, he's not even going to have the room rearranged. But that is sort of still exists as a shrine to as an inadvertent shrine to Percy's father, the naval officer, who I think Henry would sort of have a certain kinship with, in that sort of sense of military duty to country and all that.
I think Henry's kind of eye has fallen on every square inch of that study over your time as friends, and I think at the same time, at the heart or at the center of a mantle is a beautiful, immaculate brass sextant that has always drawn Henry's eye as the light hits it.
Percy, how long have you been Earl of Devonshire?
A good while at this point. I would say somewhere around 10 years.
Okay.
Percy has been styled as the Earl, or has held the title of Earl since his teen years. And
so, friend of Anthony Bridgerton, maybe. Have something in common with him anyway.
Yeah.
Good to know. And I am also going to, because we are streaming this, so we may as well, open it up to chat. If chat wants to add a detail about our ball, feel free to contribute something, because we love details that build our world, and we will literally sit here doing this all night if you don't contribute things and not roleplay at all. So please feel free, suggest things, and we will incorporate them. And with that, speaking of roleplay, let's do some role playing. So, knowing good society, as we do, what we will do is we will go around and offer at least each person one opportunity to contribute or to suggest a scene that they would like to see at this ball. It doesn't have to be one-on-one, it can be multiple characters, but we will have everybody have the opportunity to do one, and then we will see if there's anything else anyone wants to see before moving on. So with that in view, I think maybe it would make sense to start with Percy and Henry, since Henry is coming up the walk and Percy is indeed throwing this ball. So David and Zach, if that works for you, I'm happy for that to be the scene that I request as
That's
facilitator.
What I wanted to request, so we're on the same page.
Perfect. So let's begin there.
I would actually... okay, how do we feel about either Percy greeting Henry, on the walk or at the door, or Percy coming upon Henry in the study?
I think that the latter.
Where he sort of made a beeline as soon as he entered the house.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the latter. I think there's just this kind of like probably this kind of quiet. I think that when you happen upon Henry, he is just staring once more at the sextant, delicately kind of like, I think, moving almost to touch it. And you see with the only one arm and kind of, I think at that point, his fingers, very delicate, kind of move past it over to a ledger that probably your father kept on his desk and is just kind of like tracing the words with his fingers.
Yeah, and I think we even see that you trace up just a little bit of dust. As previously established, this is a very well-maintained home, a very well-maintained residence, but for whatever reason, that room is not ordered dusted as frequently.
I think, yeah, the dust kind of I think sits on Henry's index finger, and he rubs it with his thumb before, I think, meeting your eyes.
Yeah, and I think the study is directly off the staircase, so Percy is actually just finishing that knot, happens to glance into the study as he descends the final step. Oh, Henry, old boy!
Percy, so good to see you.
Well, what are you... Whatever are you doing lurking in this dreary old study? And I will come in and all smiles. Percy will I think put hands on your shoulders and embrace you.
Yeah, I think I think there's this kind of like moment of kind of reluctance, and then the arm kind of finds your shoulder and pats and kind of pulls you in in response. Now, seems like you haven't been taking care of some places. Otherwise, it's hard to say. It feels like the whole of the town is here.
Well, yes, of course. Of course. I wouldn't have any less for you.
I really wish you had less for me.
Well, Lieutenant, my goodness, hasn't the war made you bashful?
Well, it's Hank. You can call me Hank as always.
Is Hank a name that we had previously used?
Yeah, I think that is like, that was our kind of exchange, our little kind of pet name for me. Between the two of you. And I was gonna say, Percy, is Percy or Perce, or do I call you Percival just to kind of like spite you sometimes, or what?
Oh God, yeah, I like the idea that you rib me with Percival when you're feeling spicy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think for now, well, Percy, it's Hank. It's always been Hank. For you, anyway.
Right. Of course. I, wouldn't want to be improper, Hank.
Oh, heaven forbid any of us be improper.
Well.
This is, after all, quite a society get-together, it would seem.
Yes, and in a society get-together, you never know who could be listening,
Is this the lady who dare not have her name spoken aloud that I've heard so much about?
She's made quite a stir since you've been gone, Hank.
I imagine so, if even Queen Charlotte has been expressing her own interest. Word gets around. I don't hear much of it, but the ones that I do hear, they stick with me.
Yes, I'm sure Lady Whistledown's reputation has made its way abroad somewhat, even in the chaos of your campaign against the French.
And I think there's a slight wince, but and she hasn't written you out of town yet, it would seem.
No, tragically. Despite my best efforts.
Well, there's time yet. The night is very young, I'm sure.
Precisely.
And I think that as he says this, you kind of realize that he doesn't really believe it.
Now come now, you didn't even have yourself announced.
Well,
Everyone will be awaiting you in the ballroom, and here you are, mucking about in the dark with my father's old junk.
well, it's... One can't help but wonder at all the things that your father might have seen. There's so much so much stories, so many stories here, you might say. So many travels.
Yes, well, not much for traveling myself.
I didn't think so either for me. Funny how the world has different plans for us.
And it's all it's cracked up to be,
Oh,
Abroad.
Certainly. Well, I think that France might have been a nicer place to visit under different circumstances, but I was happy to stretch my legs.
Well, couldn't get me over there, I'll tell you that.
Oh, it does raise the question of what exactly you've been up to since my misadventures, as it were.
Oh, this, that, and the other thing. You know how it is over here. Social calendar goes round and round. There's the estate to maintain, and, well, people to meet.
Well, I suppose if we must.
And on that subject, I don't suppose I could persuade you to make your way to the ballroom with me.
Persuade me you shall. And I think Henry kind of straightens and kind of pulls his kind of military spine up and says, "Lay on."
Here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Up until this moment, seeing you again, was Percy aware of your injury?
That is a question. Actually, you know what? I don't think you were. I think that maybe this is a letter that got lost in the shuffle. That maybe you were too busy to read,
right. It's entirely possible you didn't write about it.
That's true too.
Yeah.
What's more interesting?
I mean, I don't know. Are we at a resolve token situation here? Because I would consider offering you a resolve token to specifically have left it out of any letters you wrote to Percy.
I will certainly take that resolve token.
I was going to say, perfect. Resolve token exchange. I will go ahead and make that move.
All right. And just a mechanical note. I actually have an extra resolve token because of the desire card that I took. So that puts me over to 2 resolve tokens.
Yep. And by the way, we
share.
are deliberately not talking about our desires because there are secrets, spoilers embedded in some of them. So we will at upkeep, of course, if we are changing our desires, talk about what the desires were. And as the flight goes on, we will disclose them. But for now,
yeah. So Percy is going to sort of put a friendly arm around you, grasping onto your shoulder of your injured arm, and I think there's just this slight like stiffening of sort of from Percy at this, but he's trying his damnedest not to bring it up.
Yeah, I think the last time that you were in this sort of embrace, I think that I had thrown my arm around your shoulder as we went out and caroused.
And he'll sort of remove his arm maybe a little too quickly and say to you, well, Hank, I assure you that there are innumerable young ladies who would absolutely love to hear your tales of derring-do out in that ballroom.
Well, then I shall endeavor to impress then, I suppose. And I think I think there's this and Percy, sincerely, thank you for this. This opportunity to re-enter society, as it were.
You're quite welcome. Come along.
Yeah. And I will follow.
I think with that, I'm imagining that the announcing of Henry's arrival by Percy is kind of very similar in tone to the moment where Lady Bridgerton is announcing that Antony is looking for a wife this season, where all the eyes of the Ton, just like the second that you announce him, just instantly go to Henry. And in fact, I think you see those very Bridgerton eyes. The whole family is here in the corner. I think Antony, already having made this pronouncement at an earlier ball, is dancing with multiple young ladies. I think you see the Sharmas out and about. I think you maybe see Antony and Kate's eyes connect once or twice, but we don't linger there because that's another show. And I think you see Eloise looking incredibly upset that she has to be here at all, very much stuffed into a dress. I think you see, you actually see the Featheringtons as well. I think you see the Featherington daughters swanning around, the one proclaiming of her recent engagement and upcoming nuptials. I think the other sort of looking sullen in a corner. And then we see, of course, Penelope, who seems to be very attentively just sort of circling the room. And you almost maybe, if you watch her for just a little too long, you see her almost make a mental note of something before moving on to another grouping, another table. But I think as a result of Percy having, the host having announced the honoree of this ball, Sloan, you and Sidonie probably would have heard this immediately. Your old friends are here. What do you do?
I feel like in direct contrast from the fiery and rather tempestuous woman we saw in private, this is a very different Sloan here at the ball. She's, despite her worst and despite her words to the contrary, she looks freaking lovely. She's wearing this amazing ball gown. She suddenly seems to have longer and curlier hair, an impeccable wig that I think Sidonie has expertly fastened up with probably, she doesn't go for the feathers and ostentatious. It's pretty austere looking. It just gives her features a much more marbled statue look, and she seems to be surveying most of the ball with this same critical aloofness. She's being talked to by multiple people, and she's doing enough to be polite and respond, but that announcement has pulled her attention away, and she is watching Percy and Henry specifically.
Sidonie is just kind of like at her elbow the whole time. She never stands in front of Sloan. She never stands quite at her side. She's always a little bit behind. And similarly to what you said about Penelope, if you watch her for long enough, almost seeming to make a mental note of things, there's kind of the same energy from Sidonie, except that, of course, Sidonie is not one of the gentry, and so people rarely watch her long enough to notice.
Just wondering if Sloan would even go up to you two. not without some sort of push.
I mean,
we could all end up there accidentally. So many people.
I think, Percy sort of pushes Henry into the room after whispering to the footman or whoever it is who announces people entering to make the announcement, and they will boom out Lieutenant Henry Wyeth, and heads turn. Non-diegetically, the band suddenly goes quiet, or the orchestra suddenly goes quiet, and I think we get applause from the assembled crowd as Henry, you enter the ballroom.
Make it diegetic too, non-diegetic and diegetic.
Yeah. And maybe the musicians strike up a patriotic song as they switch from whatever they were playing. Strike up a patriotic song as you enter.
Start playing London Boy by Taylor Swift.
That is one of the things we want to see in this game is what Vitamin String Quartet pop song is playing here.
God, well, clearly not Rule Britannia, but I'm trying to think.
And then Percy will almost like sneak into his own ball beside you, and will not avail himself of a formal announcement, and is just gonna sort of like bask next to you and with like a "Hey, look who I brought" kind of a vibe.
I think maybe this is one of those things too where like if a dance is called with the band having just struck up again, where you're all kind of close together, but then as people like make a beeline for the dance floor to go dance the quadrille, you're all sort of left facing each other. And you can't like not acknowledge each other's presence.
Love it.
Because that would be improper.
I have to volunteer two things. One, I bet in lieu of two details, there's two details I think to call back. I think that the Vitamin String Quartet, a non-diegetic music or diegetic music in this case, is probably Chandelier. And the second detail I'll say is Dorianism came up with a great idea, which was that there's just enough musicians in this place for it to be gauche, but not unseemly. One more flautist. Thank you, Dorianism.
Yeah, just on the edge of too much.
I think actually, ooh, this is this resolve token time? Perhaps like there's this moment where I think Henry and Sidonie kind of like acknowledge each other's presence. I think that whatever attention could have been lavished on Sloan by Henry is kind of, I think, negated from this sense of duty. I don't know. Is this the time for a scene?
Well, so here's because I think this connects to a certain conflict of interest, as it were. Do you instantly you see Sloan and Sidonie together? Do you address Sidonie first?
I think, I think that unless anybody wants to offer a resolve token of some sort, I think it's got to be Sidonie first. Duty all the way.
Do it.
Duty, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, is okay. Yeah, I think is that what we're? Yeah, okay.
Amazing. So yes, Sloan, you've just seen Henry approach the two of you, and it should be the opposite, really. You know, you are the one with the title. You are a lady, and yet Sidonie has been addressed first.
That from outside looking in, I can imagine why you might be confused by this. However, as Sidonie is one of my dearest friends and closest companions, I am privy to a number of private conversations that I know about, and there's absolutely nothing uncouth about what is happening here. And in fact, Sloan sees Henry coming towards her and just turns away, just slightly, as if she was the one that couldn't be bothered. And while this looks rather cold at the outset, she is leaving the door open for them to talk like they should, because they should be the ones that converse in this setting.
And I think that I think that just what was it? Henry's neck is just rod rigid to keep his attention from kind of sliding over to Sloan.
Yes, Sidonie is not. Sloan rather has not. Doesn't have a death grip on the champagne flute that she is drinking. She feels normal about all of this. Just totally fine, impassive. You cannot read any of that on her face.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm curious. Does what I mean, to what extent has your aunt kind of made us acquainted, Sidonie? I mean, how acquainted are we at this point?
I was going to ask the same thing. How recently did you come back from the war?
I'd say within the past several months. Yeah, I think ever since I was discharged for my injury a few months ago, but have spent most of that time recuperating and kind of relearning things.
So I think we've probably had like family get-togethers and like met in these like big group settings. Probably not super regularly, because I think my aunt would still be feeling out to an extent what she has to do to get Sidonie to be interested in spending time with you. But I think we like know each other well enough to have a conversation. It's just that we've never really talked in private.
Yeah, absolutely. That
would be improper.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's a very kind of courteous acknowledgement. Miss Birnbaum, it's a pleasure to see you once again. I take it that your aunt as well.
Yes. Honestly, I think she might be doing better now that I'm here and not in Habershire, but she should be joining at some point in the next couple of weeks. And how are you?
Well, I appear to be the man of the hour here, so I will endeavor to enjoy it as much as I can.
Yes, I mean, you can get away with almost anything. You can order people to bring you drinks when you tire of their conversation. You can talk about your most boring deeds overseas at length, and no one can stop you because you are the star.
I have had quite my fill of barking orders for some time, I think. And any tales that I have of daring do might be, well, let's say a little bit more better served in a different context.
Well, that's the point. You're the hero of the hour. No one can question you. You can embellish all you want. enjoy it.
Well, I certainly hadn't thought of it that way. Perhaps our show. I think at this point, Henry remembers the Ton. Oh, Lady Atherton, my apologies. It's a pleasure to see you again as well.
Yes, of course, Lieutenant. This is your night, is it not?
It would seem so.
Indeed. Well, it's a pleasure to see you. I'm sure you have many people that you're going to need to be talking to this evening.
This is certain, yes. But nevertheless, I hope that we all get an opportunity to speak again before the end of this evening. Once I've concluded my rounds, as it were.
I'm sure we will. Don't let me keep you.
Is Lord Percy with you?
And I think at this point, where is Percy? Have you wandered away?
Yeah, Percy. Percy, you see over in a knot of people closer to the entrance, sort of hangers-on, people of equal or lower station, the sort of people who are very excited to be invited to an Earl's ball, who have kind of mobbed him, and he's carrying on a little bit with these folks now that he has made his entrance as well. You catch a little snatch of conversation, something like, "Oh well, he's the real hero. At the end of the day, I just invited him here. Now, of course, it's not out of the question that I might pen some sort of poetical epic about him, but that would of course be pending his approval and permission, though I'm certain he would give it, and, well, we'll just have to see what comes of it, At
which point, I think both of you just say, I think I've located the Earl. He's there, basking, if you'd like to see him.
Sidonie says to Sloan in undertone, well, it's nice to hear he's considering asking permission for something.
Indeed. It's more than he usually does.
Well, I think that I'm actually curious. How has life here been since my departure? I feel like I've missed so much.
Life is the same, as always. We have our social seasons that we abscond to the country, and we come back and we do it again. You remember, certainly.
Yes, I do, but I suppose I was more curious to see if Percy has really been the cad that he's making himself out to be.
Lieutenant, surely you don't want me to commit some scandal in public, or has he put you up to asking me questions?
No, let's just say it's to sate my own curiosity.
That sounds like something he would make his friend say. I'll suss you out, Lieutenant.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm afraid that my time in during of service has left me with a lack of subterfuge. So, feel free to ask away if you should wish to divine the truth. And I think unless you guys make a move, I think Henry will begin to float and mingle.
Is there anything else that folks wanted to see from that group conversation?
Do I need to spend a resolve token to get you to ask Sydney to dance, Henry? I'll just do it.
No,
dance with her.
Yeah, I don't think you do. I don't think you need to. It was my original intention to ask for a dance at some point, but I think that sheer amount of awkward kind of like closing. But here's
my pitch.
Yeah.
I think you start to turn away, like, oh, I'll see you a little later, and then the orchestra starts in on the season's most fashionable dance, and you see everybody sort of excitedly begin to line up. I don't know what's that style of dance called.
It's not the waltz, it's the quadrille.
Quadrille?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the waltz was very scandalous.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Right.
can save that for a later dance.
So you see
Excellent.
everybody start
Scandalous
to line up for a quadrille in the middle of the dance floor, and now it would be more awkward if you didn't ask for a dance than if you just walked away without asking for one.
Yeah,
I love it when someone is forced to dance with me.
Yeah, I think at this point, Miss Birnbaum, would you perhaps wish to dance the quadrille with me?
Of course. Sloan, you should find a partner.
Rather, a partner should find me, and if it doesn't, then my feet shall not find the dance floor.
Some of these.
And I think you happen
God, stop worrying about me.
And I think you happen to turn where you are in such a way that now you are in the dance formation directly across where Percy just happens to stop and stand.
So as this happens, yeah, like the other people around you on both sides of you in the line are starting moveset. So like you're in the middle, you can't just like peel off without causing a scene.
I will tell you two things. One is Zach knows how to dance the quadrille many years ago. But I will also tell you that Henry is fantastic on his feet. A very portrait of grace. And I think it is kind of like with this that basically Sidonie, Henry is leading you with the one arm, and then but is still not missing a step.
Yeah, I think Sidonie is a good dancer, but always seems a little bit self-conscious. Like her movements are always just the tiniest bit restrained, more so than they should be. But she's enjoying herself. Henry is a very good dancer.
Where does this leave? Oh boy, yeah. Do we need to have a resolve token for?
Do you intend to stay silent with me for the entirety of the dance, or are we to have some conversation?
Oh, yes, Lady Atherton. So
Yes,
lovely of you to make
me.
it. I'm sorry, my mind was temporarily elsewhere.
And what was her name?
Well, that would be telling.
Just the one this time, or are there multiple thoughts in your head?
Well, you know me, Lady Atherton.
Unfortunately, yes.
I'm a man of many thoughts, many feelings, many sensibilities.
Does that work on all of the more impressionable young ladies at present?
It does fantastically well, in fact.
Oh, I bet it does. But they're all gone by morning, aren't they?
Well, yes, my dear, that's the point.
If you call me my dear again, I'll dance you straight into hell.
Lady Atherton, may I remind you that we are in my ballroom currently? And
Yes.
causing a scene would be rather untoward.
Cause a scene? Me? My lord. Surely you know me better than that. You're the one that's always causing scenes.
Yes, like I said, this is my ballroom. Therefore, I'm the only one entitled to cause a scene in it.
Oh, I see. You want the scandal. You're just jealous of all the other people that have been written up in that little pamphlet. You're waiting for your day in the sun.
I'm devastated. Devastated. I should be in every issue. If I had my
Should
way.
you? Oh, I find your scandals to be rather gauche. Rather cliché.
There's no accounting for taste. Speaking of, I see you brought your friend along.
Of
Don't
course.
recall issuing her an invitation.
No, she's here as
In
my
fact, I don't
guest.
recall issuing you an invitation either, but you know. Here
And
you
yet
are
one did-
nonetheless.
One did find its way to my doorstep. Do you really think I'd be here if I wasn't invited? Truly, I'd rather be anywhere else. Being torn in half by horses, potentially.
What, you're saying you wouldn't show up for the lieutenant? Our old
The lieutenant
friend.
might be the only reason I'm not causing a scene tonight. You should be grateful.
See? What did I tell you? I've got your number.
But you never got the ring, did you? And that's your loss, isn't it?
My lady, must we constantly speak of the past?
The past is so colourful. It still surrounds our every movement here in the present, doesn't it?
Yes, but as that may be, the present is where we are. I'm finding this rather tiresome.
As am I. So presently, I think I should leave you, and you might be able to find another dance partner with any one of your little thoughts.
I should be thrilled.
Do take care now, your lordship. And
You as well,
she's going to
Lady Atherton.
bow very politely and try not to kick you in the shin as she walks away.
I think I actually like dodge a, like something that looks like you're ending the dance, but I realize, oh wait, that's actually a kick, and I just dodge it at the last.
Yeah,
the very
beautiful,
last second.
beautiful.
I think on the other side of the ballroom, I think that Henry is making conversation with Sidonie as they are dancing. I feel like we've gotten off on the veritable wrong foot, if not the literal one. How have things been with you since last we saw each other? And at this point, I think we're just bowing, kind of like stepping to the side of each other. And there's just kind of like this look of expectation as I'm kind of keeping pace.
Things have been fine. I wasn't aware that we had gotten off on the wrong foot. I thought that we have had some perfectly amicable run-ins.
This is, yes, of course. I find myself often trying to suss things out, as it were. I believe as this kind of return has discomfited me, so I find myself perhaps what is the word? What is the phrase the bard uses? Jesting at wounds that never felt jesting at scars that never felt a wound. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I suppose that is fair. If you could have chosen your own homecoming, what would it have been?
In all honesty, maybe just a few weeks of quiet reading, perhaps a few leisurely walks around the countryside. I can't think of anything more appealing right now. Is that strange?
No, not at all. I imagine war is very busy and loud, and probably would be quite nice to be alone.
Speak not of what the war may be. I know it well enough.
Yes.
So, how have you and the Athertons been? I know that you've always been friends. I had no idea what kind of I have no idea what kind of company they keep nowadays. Are you? My words fail me. I'm merely curious what has been interesting you as it pertains to their comings and goings.
Well, if I were to tell you of all their comings and goings, I wouldn't be a very good friend to Lady Atherton, would I?
No, you would not. My apologies.
But I can tell you that she insisted that I come here with her for the season. I honestly wouldn't be here otherwise. All the matters back at home seem settled. It's not like I'm here to find a completely new prospect. But it has been great fun. She lends me her clothes and her jewelry, and I force her to come to these so that I don't have to stand awkwardly by myself. It's been very enjoyable.
I'm glad to hear it, although I can't imagine you being awkwardly by yourself. You're such a, you've always been possessed of such a clever wit.
I've found that it is less welcome in town than it is in the country.
Well, to the country then.
Exactly.
I would like to offer you, the two of you, a resolve token for the both extradiegetic and intradiegetic music to change, and that suddenly we have a slow song.
Ooh. I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. And as I'm the facilitator, I have resolve tokens to go abound. So both of you get one. Lucky you.
Excellent.
Time to start recording.
Yes. So I think you see like the marriage, the couples who are already married, or, you know, they kind of take to the floor together. You see couples who are courting also kind of gravitating towards one another. So instead of having this kind of group dance with live energy, suddenly now we have a very different tone and feel to the dancing. And I think Henry and Sidonie, you find yourselves still together.
And I think that, I think that we have this kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, do you feel like this is like something that we just kind of feel like we have to do? Or, you know, where is Sidonie on this?
I think that it is something that she feels like she has to do because like she is aware of what is expected of her, and also because it would probably be a little bit rude since we were probably dancing a few seconds into the new song to just walk away. And also I think she's like looking around trying to find Sloan and can't.
And I think that at that point, I think that, you know, I think we end up kind of pulling closer, as is kind of like the nature of this number. And so my family has been relatively mum on things as of late. I don't take it your aunt has been a bit more effusive, I should hope.
Right.
Regarding our circumstance.
Yes, I think she's just about ready to I think she's about ready to get me out of her house.
And I'm not sure if it counts for much. I know how well you used to know me in my days before the war, but I am striving to become a better man.
I believe you. I have no reason to doubt it.
It heartens me to hear that. Yes, I think that I should speak more on our circumstance with my family when I am not the center of attention.
Yes, now would probably be not the ideal time.
I would like to throw in a detail at this point. As you're saying this, you definitely get, you notice, out of the corner of your eyes, the corner of your ears, people are paying attention to the two of you and paying attention to the two of you dancing specifically. And there are some, whispers behind fans from knots of people about the ballroom. I think very specifically, some of the sort of hangers-on types that Percy was trying to regale earlier are sort of the loudest and most obvious in their noting of the man of the hour dancing with Miss Birnbaum here.
And I think almost as kind of like a reflex, I think Henry's eyes kind of slide to the side to kind of like, I think, reflexively noticing this attention to look for where Lady Atherton may be.
I think she's off of the main dance floor portion of the ballroom and is watching the two of you, and the very second your eyes slide over to her, she immediately turns away.
And yeah.
It's impossible to tell what she's really thinking or feeling in this moment. She has that same sort of bored affectation, but she looks incredibly stiff.
Yeah, I think that grace that that Henry had been possessed with during the quadrille, it falters a little bit, Sidonie, enough for you to notice.
I think she also noticed you looking away and instinctively followed your gaze just in time to see Sloan turn away. And she kind of like looks back at Henry and she's like, she wouldn't have been here tonight if not for me insisting.
Oh, I certainly hope that she finds a good deal of pleasure in the proceedings here.
I think as long as she can avoid Lord George for as much of the evening as possible, she'll enjoy herself.
That rings true.
So if you could help, because I do not want to be the subject of her tirades when we get home tonight, I would appreciate it.
Certainly. Thank you for this dance, Miss Birnbaum. And
thank you.
Just bow kind of at the waist very formally.
And
I think, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, you definitely, as you raise from your bow, catch Percy, across the room, talking to some folks, sort of look over his shoulder at you with like a, what? What are you doing, buddy?
Love it. And I think as this song comes to a close, suddenly in the midst of this very tense moment, you hear horns begin to blare and a footman steps in and says in a very loud, booming voice, "Her Majesty, Queen Charlotte, accompanied by Lady Whistledown." And that's where we're going to take a break. But we will cut right to the action where Queen Charlotte has just swanned onto the dance floor, the eyes of the Tawn upon her. And she is followed by a young woman of slim stature with coiled blonde hair and green eyes, bottle green eyes. She looks to be about 23. And you heard the footman say something odd, something to the effect of the fact that the queen was accompanied by Lady Whistledown. Now, for those of you who know Bridgerton, that's impossible because Penelope Featherington is in fact Lady Whistledown. And so whoever this person can be surely cannot be the scribbler. However, the queen takes advantage of the kind of momentary hush and lull and looks over the eyes of her subjects. I'm very pleased to see all of you in attendance, and it brings me great pleasure to see so many fine couples in attendance here. I have no doubt that the true diamond of the first water will be named soon. After all, you know I am hesitating on my pronouncement because I want to make sure to pick the proper person. In fact, it is very important that the diamond of the first water, who I declare to be my diamond, represents everything that a young lady of the social season should be. Poised, eloquent, and perfect in every way. And it is difficult when we have interveners like the scribbler publishing gossip and salacious scandal with anonymity, no one to hold her accountable for her words. In fact, this poor woman, and she gestures to the woman at her side, Lady Whistledown, Lady Lydia Whistledown, is an esteemed member of our peerage who is caught, unfortunately, in this scandal, insofar as the fact is her name, her very name, has been corrupted by this person. You see, the Whistledowns are of the North, and they take their propriety very seriously. And of course, when Lady Whistledown first began publishing her society papers, everyone thought that this poor family was at the heart of the matter. After all, Lydia here, Lady Lydia Whistledown, is Lady Whistledown, and the only true Lady Whistledown, as far as I'm concerned. Now, Lady Lydia Whistledown is looking for a partner this season. And I think it is only right that the Tawn abide and hopefully rescue her from the scandal that was brought upon her without cause. I hope that she will make an exceptional match, as I hope many of you will this season. And I think she turns to Lady Whistledown and she nods, and Lady Whistledown kind of does a very big curtsy and then looks kind of shyly around the room. Like, it's clear that she is not, she's from the North. She's not usually in London, but has come down expressly for the purposes of the season. And you get the impression that she is staying with the Queen, that much like the Prince from the first season, she is kind of the Queen's special guest, is staying with the Queen, and anyone wishing to court her would go to the palace, in fact, to take a call or make her acquaintance better. But I think she sort of shyly kind of ushers over as people begin talking again. And she picks up a glass of champagne and is kind of, sitting to herself and looking for someone to talk to. So with that bit of context.
Well, I must be a gracious host.
Of course. Hoping you would.
Yeah, I think Percy had eyes on Henry and Sidonie, and was clearly angling for something there. There's something there that he does not care for. But the Queen has completely distracted him, and he will will go over. Is Lady Whistledown with the Queen, or has the Queen moved off?
The Queen has moved on. So I think the queen has kind of moved to the side. There's like a special chair, I'm sure, that your servants have set up for her. They knew that she would be arriving. I'm sure they didn't tell you, and nor would they have thought to tell you. But she comes with an entourage too. So you kind of have to prepare for them and like set them up. She's got tons of footmen. She's got people to bring her little snuff box when she requires it, and her hair basically takes up the whole door frame. So you gotta have people to take care of that too. So I think, the queen is sort of ushered over to the side where she will kind of sit and observe the rest of your event. And I think Lydia is sort of, off to kind of the refreshments table where maybe she's getting some champagne and punch.
Right. Is it proper or expected for me to talk to the queen? Do I have to like say hi?
I think you don't have to have a protracted conversation with her, right? But I would kind of, because, if what's good for you, Percy, right, you would probably
if the queen shows up,
bow.
It seems like you should go say hi to the queen if the queen shows up at your house. So Percy will certainly first go over to the queen, bow, say something to the effect of, Your Highness, it is a deep and prodigious honor to be graced with your presence this evening.
Earl Devonshire. It's very lovely to be here. You've changed the walls since the last time your father had me here.
Oh,
is that your doing?
I'm pleased that you noticed, Your Highness.
Yes, your father had great taste in interior decor, although there was some sort of ship on it, I think. Or like an anchor print, something like that. I remember it being dark blue.
Oh, yes. As you know, my father was a naval man, and, well, I confess I have no such facility myself. So, thought it was time for a change. You know how fashions are, Your Highness.
Quite. Do I have it correct that you will be looking to rectify that? Perhaps take a wife this season?
Oh, well, who could say, Your Highness? Who could say?
Earl Devonshire, it is too long you have kept yourself out of the marriage market. I think it is high time you find a partner, and with all the lovely young ladies here, I can't see why you would abstain so very long.
Well, Your Highness, as you say, with all the fine ladies here, I am somewhat embarrassed for choice.
I'll see to it that you become less embarrassed for choice and make a selection sooner rather than later. After all, you will need a Lady Devonshire to make sure the wallpaper returns to its former glory.
Yes, certainly, Your Highness. Most certainly. I see that you've brought a very interesting guest.
Yes, you refer to the true Lady Whistledown. Not that society gossip.
The true Lady Whistledown. Well, I would put nothing past Your Highness, but however did you find her?
Well, you see, the scribbler says many a thing that irritates me. Sometimes I think she is deliberately trying to provoke me. And we can't have that, not the queen of the realm. So as you might expect, I have a relatively robust investigative operation at my disposal, and we uncovered her early in our inquiry. She, however, turned out to be completely innocent, and I consider her cleared of all charges. There is no way that she could have been the Lady Whistledown of the society papers. And as such, I took pity on the poor girl. After all, to have your name slapped about in papers like that, everyone thinking that you're something you're not. I brought her here because I think it's high time that she, too, make a match. I think the queen looks at you knowingly.
I believe I take your meaning, Your Highness. In that case, I shall take my leave, and perhaps welcome our other new guest this evening?
See that you do. And I think the queen has like one of the fans in front of her face that she's fanning herself with. And I think she leans forward to you kind of conspiratorially with like one side of her fan towards you. And she goes, and you may want to be quick about it. I see Anthony Bridgerton is also on the market this year.
I look miffed about that one. And I will bow and make a casual beeline for Lady Whistledown. Which, if we want to cut to a different conversation, would be a good point.
I was going to suggest, where have other folks gotten to over the course of this reveal?
I took the opportunity of the Queen's arrival to leave. all eyes were on somebody else, so I saw an opportunity and I took it.
Classic Sloan. Where do you go?
I think to the greenhouse. If I can't be outside, well then, I'll settle for some sort of nature. At the very least, I can breathe in here. No one else seems to be here.
I think, and I don't know if I need to pay a resolve token for this, but I think that with the arrival of the queen, knowing that he has to, like, at some point of this night, like, talk to her and kind of like, pay homage to her, I think there's still just so much that's just now starting to kind of like fall in around Henry. And I think at this point, he in the kind of chaos that ensues, seeing that the queen has gone to talk to Percy, ever graceful on his feet, Henry manages to abscond out of the house proper, and you just see, like, as he's kind of walking from the main hall entrance, or maybe there's a side entrance that he's kind of made his way out of, he's just kind of pulling at the military clasped kind of buttons that he's just kind of pulling off to almost feel like he can breathe and just take the pressure off of his neck. And I think, just in full sight of the greenhouse as he kind of manages to just take very long, deep breaths outside.
I think there's a terrace outside. We've described a terrace immediately outside the ballroom, and I think there's steps that go down into the gardens, and then the greenhouse is on the opposite side of the garden. So we're seeing Henry do this as you are making your way across through the gardens towards the greenhouse, which are, I want to say, dramatically torchlit.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Sloan takes a breath and then heads into the back of the greenhouse and starts rummaging around in some of the pots that have yet to be, flowered. I don't know. And she's just, I know Percy always aha! And it's a secret bottle of brandy that's in one of the pots.
Oh, okay. All right.
And pulls it out. Probably just at the same time as you, dare I say, walk in.
I love that.
Yeah, I think I walk in and you just say, "Hey, that's mine." I think Henry realizes. I think Henry just like just was beelining for that same bottle of brandy.
Yeah, you both know that Percy keeps this under here for sure.
Yeah, and I just say, oh, you wouldn't happen to have another glass, would you?
Only if you swear what you've just seen to total and utter secrecy.
And my word is my bond. And just hold the hand out in front of me, and
And she pulls the bottle out from behind her back. No glasses in here, I'm afraid, Lieutenant, but she uncorks it and takes a swig and hands it.
And I take it, and I think that I kind of like give you a sly eye. It's rather uncouth. Only seen other soldiers do something like drink straight from the bottle. And big swig.
Well,
Pass back.
it's not like we're in public right now, are we?
This is true. Well, I feel like everything is being watched so intensely. So might as well be.
Oh, you more so than usual. You're not enjoying your day in the sun?
I think I would prefer a day in the sun that was actually in the sun as opposed to the cloisters of candlelit dance halls. It's so much. It's too much.
Yes, I recall some rather exuberant adventures between you and my brother and I in our younger days.
Those days are long since past, but I'd be a scoundrel to deny they ever happened. What have you? What misadventures have you been getting up to? And don't tell me more walks in the country and more summers in the... Tell me something interesting,
but
something different.
Lieutenant, I'm a lady of society.
Oh, yes.
I must be seen out talking with this person and that person and buying this new gown. Do you not appreciate this new gown that I have so recently purchased?
And I think I'm just taking a look at all that. Yes, very nicely appointed.
Thank you. I would say I do my best, but that actually comes down to our dear Sidonie.
Oh,
she's the one that got me into this thing.
oh, that you're telling me you wouldn't want to be seen at a nice seasonal event at the home of the Earl of Devonshire, Percival?
Henry, seeing as we are completely alone in this greenhouse, allow me to tell you that this is the precise last place I would wish to be seen and be seen with in history.
So I have a resolve token. I think Henry has no idea what has transpired because he was at war.
I love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And I say, well, I don't know what to make of that. I thought we were all fairly fast friends, as it were. As fast friends as we could be.
So are you joking with me? Are you having me on?
What are you talking about?
You have no... You come now, you have no idea. You're joking. I haven't had that much brandy.
I don't know if you are aware of this, Lady Atherton, but there's been a war on.
Yes, I've noticed. I was wondering when you were going to tell me what happened there. Last time I saw you, you did have 2 of those. Everyone else is not going to say anything out of polite society, but now that we're in the greenhouse and I've had at least 3 sips of this brandy, I'm no longer considered polite society.
Let us just say that one of Napoleon's good young men managed to get a nice slice in with a very dirty bayonet.
So at least it was nobly lost. Cheers. Yeah. She drinks and then passes it directly back to you.
Yeah, at which point...
She does not look like she's trying to be cruel to you. She is just being herself now that she is not being witnessed by anybody.
Yeah. And I think there was that moment where like Henry wasn't ready to talk about it, but then kind of seeing the tone kind of just rolls with it. So it's just me and Admiral Wellington now. I guess they'll make me a general any minute now.
Just the two of you defending our borders. Goodness.
Between the two of us, we've got two good arms.
Then I shall sleep soundly, knowing that you are defending us. But as to your former question, well, Percy is Percy. And he behaves exactly as Percy always has behaved.
Like,
I was simply too naive to see it.
Like what's been, I believe I've heard rake with a capital R.
Yes, indeed.
I had so hoped that he had come to his senses.
It appears not, and rather than be the subject of scandal and gossip, we've decided, or rather, I decided it best the courtship end before it could, before rings could enter into the question.
Ah.
I'm quite over it, Henry. I've just been determined to be a terror to him instead, because I find it amusing.
I can't think of one thing more that Percival needs, but I wanted to say I know that Percy and I we behaved untoward often, and we had our wild days, and for many people our age, those days are, not behind them, but I feel like mine are behind me. And I hope that I've never, ever offended you in any way.
So you're saying us stripping down to our knickers and racing through the garden to find more brandy is completely out of the question.
And I think
Lieutenant, I'm joking.
I look at the bottle and I just say, well, depends on whether or not we split it evenly.
Oh, a challenge. Well, don't threaten me with that. I might actually take you up on it. I'm starting to get a little bit warm.
It would be fairly untoward indeed if Queen Charlotte were to find the guest of honor in his knickers with a full salute.
Can you imagine the look on Percy's face if we two were the ones that got into Lady Whistledown's newest pamphlet and he has yet to even have a line devoted to his exploits?
He'd melt from envy.
Oh, this is sounding better and better. I'm going to need to start hearing some things to the contrary before I start untying some of these laces.
Duty to one's country, alas, dictates that we do what is required of us of Her Majesty.
And speaking of duty, how is dear Sidonie?
We need only finalize the details with our families, and I imagine at this point it's putting a date and a writ, and all will be said and done.
Yes, well, I imagine the two of you shall be very happy together.
I hope. What of your prospects? Will you find yourself your own Anthony Bridgerton? I hear he's...
I can barely stand that man too. Slightly less than Percival, but...
Well, it's fair. He always seemed like a bit of a nonce.
Well, luckily he hasn't asked me to dance, and for that I am eternally grateful. But no, there shan't be any husbandry around me.
Have you thought of running away to the Americas?
I've thought of running away to a great deal of many places, Henry. But I am not the one with the money. My dear brother is the one who has more of the opportunity to travel.
How is the Marquess?
Well, he's fine. I write to him frequently. I believe I expect him back from, where is he now? Germany, I believe his last letter was. Any day now, and then things shall be properly wild, I believe we were discussing.
Well,
Have you written to him?
to Rowan, to the Marquess? No. I have fallen behind in my communications, as it were.
Yes, it seems so. You know, he's going to be quite put out by you appearing here, no letter.
I will make a point of it then. In the meantime, if you do see him, give Rowan my love, my regards.
Yes, I will certainly do that.
I'm very happy to have seen you, Lady Atherton. It's good to see a friendly face amid this den of iniquity is too strong a word. I'm not quite sure what it's a den of.
Lieutenant, I believe you might be one of the few people here to call my face friendly.
I hope that should never change.
Well, I look forward to doting on you and Sydney's dutiful children as the ever-loving aunt. I hope you shall consider me.
They'll all have fantastic posture.
Too right, and excellent swordsmanship.
Well, we'll see how that pans out.
Oh, I'll ensure it.
See that you do.
Can you give monologue tokens to people? Or we should probably move to another scene.
You can, though, give a monologue. The thing about monologue tokens, here's my ethos about them, is if it calls to you, like if you're just, it's like you got to follow it. Like that's how monologue tokens work.
Yeah.
Just go for it.
I've just been desperate to know what is happening in your head, Henry.
I think that...
Because we're both talking around each other.
Yeah, I think, there's this moment, like, as you're kind of, like, talking about this, I think what's revolving is just there is this pang, this desire to say more, to find out more about who you are and what's important to you, and what you have been doing in all of this time. Having seen you has kindled this kind of longing to learn, but at the same time it is, in sharp contrast, a conflict of, I have to do what I must. I have to do what is right, whether it's for my family, for my country, to do right by this person to whom I have made a promise. And it's just always on the front of his brain, but at the tip of his tongue. And it's every time he looks away and looks down and thinks and contemplates, and those moments when he has to, maintain that posture, that rigid officer's regard, that he's so caught up in here, and it's just fractions of a second. But if you're very close and you're looking very observantly, you'll catch it.
Yeah. I think they continue drinking in the greenhouse.
We have a resolve token from Chloe for Penelope Featherington to be walking past the greenhouse.
No! You're welcome.
Oh man, looks like we actually are going to get into Lady Whistledown's papers ahead of Percy.
When you said that, I thought you had seen in the chat where I offered the resolve token.
I was not paying attention.
Oh, wow.
brilliant, though. I love it this way, actually.
Oh, God, no.
In which case, if one of you wants to kind of leave to come back to the party, should you accept this, I feel like you can catch Penelope, like, kind of awkwardly, like, I was looking for a place to... It gets very crowded in there, after all. I'm sorry if you've... I didn't realize there was anyone here.
I think Henry has left to give the queen his regards. And so it's just her and Sloan.
So in that case, Sloan is just going to almost uncharacteristically be less aloof. I think Penelope's only ever seen her give like maybe 1 or 2 word replies when she's in public. And she just quietly goes, Miss Featherington, you appear rather nervous. Take my advice. There's some brandy in the greenhouse. Help yourself. And she walks away.
I think you see like her perk up a little bit before you leave, and I think she walks into the greenhouse with slightly more purpose. In which case, we shall rejoin our party in the ballroom. Sidonie, what are you up to?
I think she has gone back to her slightly wallflowerish ways. She found a quiet hallway leading off the ballroom, and she's like taking a minute to herself before she goes back in. She can't find Sloan. Sloan's like her emotional support best friend. And so she's just standing there, like drinking lemonade frantically, like wiping the sweat off her brow because I'm sure it's super, super humid in there. Just trying to like collect herself before going back.
Would you accept a resolve token to be close enough to the conversation that Percy and Lydia Whistledown are about to have to overhear it?
Absolutely.
Lovely. Perfect. I will make the token exchange. Which, Percy, means I think things are over to you.
Yeah, okay, so, right, we've established that Lady Lydia Whistledown has sort of moved over to the side wall, and I think Sidonie has just sort of set up like exactly opposite, and there's this open door right there, and so you're against one wall, and Lady Whistledown is against the other, as Percy approaches. And he will approach Lady Whistledown. My lady.
Oh. I'm sorry. My lord, I don't think we are acquainted.
I don't believe we are, and I should like to rectify that. I am Percy, Earl of Devonshire. Pleased to make your acquaintance.
Devonshire, and I think her curtsy deepens ever further. You are the one hosting this beautiful ball, are you not?
I do have that most notable honor, yes.
Ah, well then, I must give you my thanks for hosting me. I can't say that I've been to many balls as of late. I think this is my first one this season, actually, having traveled down from the north. The Queen was ever so kind as to sponsor and host me here.
Yes, indeed. I was just speaking to Her Majesty, in fact, and she seems rather enamored of you.
Does she? Well, that's very kind of her. I can't think forever why. I know I share...
It's very like Her Highness to reach out her royal hand and pluck a diamond out of, well, wherever she can find one.
Sir, you are too kind. I don't fancy myself a diamond, merely a gemstone that got lucky and somehow appears to be at the finest ball in London.
And yet, Her Highness, well, she rather seems to think that you are unlucky, and has brought you here to rectify that. There seems to be some sort of mix-up between yourself and a scrivener of...
Oh, yes. I'm sure you've read the
renown.
papers. Everyone has.
Yes, indeed, they are most intriguing.
Well, I can assure you that the palace has questioned my family and I at length, and I can assure you with 100% certitude I am no such scribbler. If I were, I'd hardly write under my own name now, would I, and invite all this unwelcome attention upon myself? But I am determined to find out who it is, and see that justice is served for using my name and title for such unscrupulous purposes.
You don't fancy yourself a writer at all, my lady?
Oh no, I couldn't claim to have such talents. I keep a diary, as I think many young women do, but I would never put my thoughts out to be read publicly.
Well,
I can't say that I have thoughts worth sharing.
Now, come now. A lovely woman such as yourself, no thoughts worth sharing at all.
You flatter me. I have the thoughts that I'm supposed to share, I suppose. I am very well read in all of the classics. I speak Latin and Greek. I'm very good at the pianoforte, if I do say so myself. I've had all the right training, but somehow I think sometimes the right training doesn't always produce authentic thoughts. Do you know what I mean?
I do, my lady. I fancy myself somewhat of an amateur writer, and, well, it's a very particular art.
You wouldn't happen to be Lady Whistledown, would you? Because then I would have to have some very harsh words with you indeed.
My lady, if I, the Earl of Devonshire, were Lady Whistledown, well, I could scarcely keep it to myself.
I think I would like to offer one of my many new resolve tokens to have Sydney be privy to this conversation, or to find her way into it. How is really the question, however.
Yeah,
I
I very much want this to happen.
Yeah, I have already
Do
received a resolve token to overhear the conversation, so I will now take this new one to enter the scene. If there's talking in the ballroom, like right outside the doors, I think it would make sense for her to like come back in, maybe trying to, I think she would try to move quietly, but it would also be slowly because she is interested in this conversation. Ostensibly because she thinks Percy is being ridiculous, but
I have an idea. So hear me out. What if you were over here, you were like kind of listening surreptitiously, but then there's sort of a mistake, like a fork is dropped, or you break a glass, or something that invariably draws attention to you and how close you are to this conversation, and then you have to make an excuse to enter it to avoid.
Yeah, I will drop my glass of lemonade by accident. I guess there's no more in it. Don't want to make too much of a mess.
I think Lady Whistledown immediately kind of flips to look at you. Oh.
Miss Birnbaum. I did not realize you were so close by.
Oh.
I was just standing in the hallway. I was getting a bit of a headache. I needed to be somewhere quieter.
Are you quite all right? There seems to be broken glass all over the floor. Perhaps we could get someone to... And she looks kind of imploringly at Percy.
Yes. And I just wave at somebody sort of non-specifically. I am not interested in this glass. And I am immediately, like, laser focused on Sidonie here. Well, Miss Birnbaum, interesting that you should find yourself so close to our conversation. You know, we were just discussing one Lady Whistledown. Not this esteemed lady to whom I am speaking, but rather one who is known for snooping about and collecting gossip. Curious that. What a coincidence, wouldn't you say?
Oh, quite the coincidence, given how eager everyone in this ballroom is to overhear any shred of gossip that they can.
Yes. Well, I don't suppose you've heard anything worth sharing, hmm?
Not with you.
Not with me. With Lady Atherton, perhaps. You do so like to share with her.
Well, she is my dearest friend. And an honest and upright woman. Although I suppose you don't really know anything about honesty.
My dear, there's no such a thing.
I apologize. I forget myself. Lord Percy and I grew up together in a way.
Is this true, Earl Devonshire?
Oh. Yes, Lady Whistledown. All good fun amongst friends here.
Will I say Miss Birnbaum, you said your name was?
Yes.
Yes,
you
Miss
wouldn't happen...
Birnbaum.
Oh. Are you on the marriage market as well?
I suppose so. I'm really not looking actively, but
Well, either you are or you aren't, dear.
I'm not really.
Oh, I see. Is there any
So you have
reason
nothing
why?
to fear from me. Oh, I really should go.
Oh,
I don't see anyone coming over here to clean up this glass, so.
well, that doesn't mean that you need to. And I think she looks like, oh no, my friend. I think she looks imploringly at Percy. Percy, Earl Devonshire, could we really get someone to clean this up? Miss Birnbaum is
Yes, if
clearly
Miss Birnbaum
upset
is
about this.
distressed, I shall attend to it right away.
See that you do.
What kind of host would I be if I did not attend to the comfort of my guests?
Indeed. Miss Birnbaum, now you were saying about, or Earl Devonshire was saying about your interest in the goings about of the Ton. You wouldn't happen to know anyone who might fit the description of someone who could, well, be my double, as it were?
I truthfully think it could be about half of the people in this room, although I am very sorry that you've been caused such trouble by it.
Yes, well, I'm afraid the solicitors have looked into it and there's nothing they can do, not without someone to prosecute anyway. So my name shall continue to be subjected to libel. That's what they call it, the solicitors, libel.
At least she's funny. You could be associated with someone who hasn't a whit of talent with a pen.
Yes, well, I'm afraid that sometimes is a double-edged sword in and of itself. People usually expect me to have a great wit and to have a cutting remark as a reply in conversation, where sometimes I find I do not.
Well, being cutting could be overrated. But you seem very, very lovely. It's been a pleasure to meet you. Are you on the marriage market then? Or is it just that Queen Charlotte wants you to be?
I think she considers this. I expect I hadn't really given it much thought. I mean, I didn't expect to come to London this season. I have given marriage much thought. after all, a woman of my age really should be, but until Queen Charlotte's invitation, I hadn't really a plan to come this season, and now that I'm here, I suspect I must play the part and find myself someone suitable. And, well, after all, it need not be a love match. I need only find someone who will be a good husband and with whom I can abide my time and have some pleasant years as we grow old. That's really all I'm looking for.
I think that rather is the goal.
Did you ever entertain the idea of a love match?
When I was young, of course, as most do, but there are other considerations one realizes as they grow older.
Yes. We all age out of happily ever after all too quickly, don't we?
Yes. And there's something to be said for, as you said, someone to abide your time pleasantly with as you grow old, rather than the easily burned out passions of a youthful love match. Imagine having a torrid affair with someone and then realizing you don't even like them.
Wow, yes, that would be quite scandalous indeed and unfortunate. I think if you will accept this, Percy, this is the moment that you come back with the help for the glass, and you just managed to catch the slight remark about torrid affairs.
Yeah. I'm actually not sure how much of the remark do I catch? Just the word torrid affairs or what?
No, I'll toss that over to Sidonie. What do you think?
I'm fine with you overhearing the whole comment about like having a torrid affair with someone that you don't even like.
Mm-hmm.
Let's seed this drama. Why not?
Okay. I'm trying to figure out what his angle is here now. Damn.
Might be easier if Lydia leaves the conversation.
I think she will. I think maybe a gentleman has overheard the comments about marriage markets, or at least is nearby, and has taken that opportunity to ask for her hand for a dance. And I think she looks to the two of you and, well, it seems duty calls. Earl Devonshire, it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and thank you again for the gracious invitation. And Miss Birnbaum, I do hope I will see more of you. It's always a pleasure to have someone to have such good conversations with.
Of course, do call on me at any time.
And feel free to do the same, although I suppose I reside in a very intimidating place now, don't I?
All the more appeal.
And I think with that, she laughs and takes the gentleman's hand to the dance floor.
So she wants to see more of you, does she?
She does.
Thought I was doing really well there for a minute.
I can't imagine why.
I know why you're here, Sidonie.
Oh, and why is that?
Because otherwise, Lady Atherton would not come.
Can you
Lady
blame her?
Atherton is here to support the lieutenant. And you've taken it upon yourself to ensure that that comes to pass. It's very good of you.
To ensure what comes to pass?
That she that she is present at the ball here for Henry.
You're making it seem much more dramatic and meaningful than it really is. They're old friends, and I enjoy a party.
And that's all there is to it.
What else would there be to it?
You do like collecting your little secrets. I certainly didn't invite you myself, Miss Birnbaum. despite what the invitations may read.
And yet there were invitations.
I have people who are responsible for that.
I would never make the mistake of assuming that you actually wanted either myself or Lady Atherton here.
Good. Good. Then let us, for the time being, merely enjoy the evening. How does that sound?
Once you walk away, I think I'll enjoy it quite well.
Did you learn anything interesting from Lady Whistledown?
Which one?
Good. Good. And Percy is just going to sort of saunter off.
Okay, I want to make a bold, grand statement that on the opposite catty corner of where this conversation is taking place, Anthony Bridgerton and Kathani Sharma are having a very similarly charged rapport with Lady Edwina standing very similarly to like where Lady Whistledown was standing. And we're just having, the camera is kind of looking back between these conversations and the energy is mirrored.
Incredible. She is definitely not looking at the marble cheeks as he walks away.
Clearly not. No one needs to know. Why would you want to see the marble cheek?
Why would anyone want to?
No.
Very confusing.
Utterly detestable. Just the cheeks, just apropos of nothing.
And on that note.
There's a tight trouser.
Okay, on that note. Is there anything else we would like to see in this novel chapter before we bring it to a close?
Did someone actually want to give me a monologue token?
I will, by God, I will give you a monologue token if you're ready, if you want
I'm
it.
ready.
I've only given.
I would love that for a close.
Do it. Wait, what kind of music would you like to accompany your monologue?
Well, I don't know. What's it going to be about?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Know?
As the giver, Zach, you get to dictate the content of the monologue, should you so choose, or at least ask a question.
What is it about Percy's manner or character, not just the history, what really sticks in your craw when you like walk away from this conversation? What infuriates you the most?
I think that what infuriates her is that even though they're sparring, he's not getting angry at her like in a dramatic way. He's not being like, leave my party. He's just kind of taking it on the chin and then walking away. Like, I think, like she obviously got a little bit of a rise out of him, but like he's not having a response that kind of matches her rancor, at least that she can see. I don't know what's going on in his head. It's like a combination of that and him reminding her that he didn't invite her, which is a sentiment that she gets a lot, normally in more disguised ways. But it's not something that she is unfamiliar with hearing, like, the only reason you're here is because we wanted Sloan to come. And so I think it's that he pisses her off so much, but she doesn't matter to him is the core of it. So the answer was apparently dramatic, angry music.
Delightful. Amazing. All right. Well, with that, I think seems the perfect place to leave it. Unless there's anything else anyone wanted to see this evening. If not, then we will very quickly go through and do reputation, and then we will leave it at that, mostly because it's good to do reputation when things are still fresh in your brain. And then we will come back next week with Rumor and Scandal, the Lady Whistledown papers. So for reputation, have a look at your character role and family background sheets. Reputation, as we are fond of saying in the Storybrewers Discord, is self-assessed, which means you get to determine whether or not any of your actions this evening qualify you for a positive or negative resolve token, or sorry, reputation tag. So effectively, your character material should tell you what kind of the conditions of getting a positive or negative reputation tag are for your character based on their position. You don't have to take one or the other. You can just say, I don't think I did anything that was notable enough to get a reputation tag of either kind this session. But particularly if you made a decision where duty and desire were in conflict and you chose one or the other, that typically can be a moment where you say, yeah, like I did pick up a tag for that action. So give it a think, and I will open the floor for anyone who has ideas.
I'll just say straight out that I think I get both a positive and a negative. I think the positive comes from like, I don't think she would have come to this if not for like the need to have Sloan come to this. And then the negative is obviously for that entire conversation with Percy.
Amazing. Do you have thoughts about what you want them to be, or are you going to percolate on that a little more?
I'm going to percolate for a minute or two.
Okay, I can chime in the meantime. I think my inner conflict is definitely duty versus desire. I think that I pushed away someone important, or I took action in pursuit of duty, which I'm not sure if it counts as a positive or a negative. I think that in this case, does this trigger a one of these reputation moves, by the way?
So a reputation condition will be triggered, so not yet, when you have 3 in either column. So you start out with a positive and a negative reputation tag, and then if you are gaining 1 this session, that will give you 2 in one column, and if you are to get a 3rd in that column, that will give you a reputation condition. So that's how that works.
Okay, so I think I took action in pursuit of duty, so I will mark 1 in that column. Okay. And then the next thing is for my military background. I believe I can get a positive tag for either honorable or steadfast, just based on acted in the service of duty or morality in a way that compromised your desires.
Honorable sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Perfect. So go ahead and add that, I think, to your positive column if you're acting in pursuit of duty.
Absolutely.
I've decided to take agreeable and impertinent.
That seems to fit Sidonie very well. David, Marcy, thoughts?
I'm just trying to understand the criteria.
Yeah, remind me exactly where we're looking. We're looking, are all the criteria under our family?
It should say, like, column. There's kind of, you gain a, and I think it sometimes gives you adjective possibilities. Like if you denied your desires in favor of duty is a typical one. I believe it's on family backgrounds.
Okay.
The character roles are conditions.
For family backgrounds, I think, David.
Right.
Okay. Right, because you were both peers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should be looking at the same thing, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think I definitely gain a negative. I have acted in a way that is against society's convention, acted on a desire in a way that compromised your duty or morality. I definitely didn't allow others to treat me as an inferior, but I do think that the adjective tag can only be unchaperoned.
I like that. Yeah, unchaperoned is good.
Given the greenhouse.
Perfect. And you were seen, as it were.
And I was
so.
seen. That's why I'm going for it.
Sounds good. And finally, David, what you thinking?
I don't know. I think there's arguments for positives and negatives here. Okay, so I think there is an argument to be made under negative, certainly for that last scene of allowed others of lesser rank to talk down to you or treat you as an inferior. That one feels pretty cut and dry to me. The one that I'm not sure about is the positive tag for acted in obedience to society's convention despite considerable hardship in doing so. And for that, I'm wondering about Percy's interactions with the Queen and Lady Whistledown. I don't know. What do we think?
Well, reputation is self-assessed, as I say. So it is ultimately what your gut says. But I think the thing I always ask myself about that particular question is sort of what considerable hardship means to that character. Like, is it a minor inconvenience, or like, did you have to deny something you really wanted?
Yeah.
Right. Or that like your heart pulls you one way, but like society demands that you do something else. So like being in compliance, I tend to not always associate that as getting a positive tag. If I just like follow what society wants and nobody's mad at me, then I generally read that as like neutral. But if like I do something specifically because society expects it of me and it, pulls me away from something I really want, that's when I'll trigger a positive.
Yep. That makes sense to me. So that's a no. So then I've just gained a negative tag. What is that negative tag?
Jackass.
Horny.
Rake with a capital R.
There you go. I mean, that would be appropriate for this, our first episode.
Do we like rakish as a tag?
Rakish.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm going to add the negative tag rakish.
Yeah, it's
Rakish is great.
prototypical rake. Yeah.
Great. And I note also, because of the desire I chose, now have 3 negative tags.
Oh, do you? Okay, so
Hell
we will.
yeah.
So this means you will trigger a negative reputation condition at the top of next session. And so we will talk about what that means. We will see a vignette where your condition triggers, depending on which one you take. And yeah, you'll have consequences because of that. Now, mind you, you can spend your reputation tags if you want to ever get rid of your condition. You can do that. You can spend them as resolve tokens, which is a rule most people forget about. But actually, if you spend, say, rakish as a resolve token in a scene, it just means you're changing the narrative in a way that is flavored by that adjective. So you are changing the narrative in a rakish way, or where your rakishness has some bearing on the story. So that is worth bearing in mind if people end up with bunches of conditions and want to know what to do about it. But yeah, all right. So that concludes reputation. We will leave it here, and we will come back on Rumor and Scandal next week. So please join us on Tuesday, same time, same place for that, where we will pick up this delightfully salacious narrative. In the meantime, or before we go, we want to do just a quick round robin of plugs. Just a reminder who you are, where we can find you on the socials, and if there's anything you'd like to tell the viewers at home about. So let's start with Marcy.
Hey guys, still me, still Marcy. Yeah, thanks for joining us for our premiere flight for Bridgerton. Flights of Fandom has a lot of stuff still upcoming. Next month, I mean, for the month of April, we will be continuing to do Bridgerton, but in May, we will be taking a galactic detour into Star Wars with our long shot flight. If you've missed the other 2 flights set in that same universe, you can find it on YouTube, where you can find a bevy of our other past flights and other shows that we have right here on this channel, like another show that Zach and I and Marissa are in, Invisible Sun, our show, The Hole in the World. It's absolutely buck wild. We'll be back on this Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. You should join us. Things are getting dicey, so it's a good episode to come in on if you haven't watched before. And I want to give a quick shout out to a college friend of mine's, awesome and cool podcast. He's part of a group called The Rolled Players. I'm going to put a link in the chat before we depart for the night. It's a Star Trek live play podcast called Ex Astris, and you can find it anywhere you get your podcast. So you guys should check it out.
Thank you. Perfect. Right on over to Zach.
Hey everybody, I'm Zach, otherwise known as Great Zamino. That is where you can find me on Twitter and the rest of the interwebs. I am happy to say that I am also very excited for the return to the Hole in the World, as well as the return of Long Shot, and some more cool stuff coming up. My own shout outs are to good friends of our show, Encounter Party, which does a D&D 5e campaign set in the world of Ravnica, which is a Magic the Gathering setting. But they are segueing into something new and cool eventually, so we'll see what that pertains to for their 4th season, which is a really cool podcast of their actual play, very tightly scripted, very well acted on top of that. And then in addition, big shout out to Jeff Stormer, a huge friend of Flights of Fandom, and who has guested with us a couple of times, playing some of his own games, and also just most recently on 4 detectives and a vampire who is also a detective, but for the game 4 Sherlock Holmes and a vampire who is also a Sherlock Holmes. So those are my shout outs.
Awesome. And right on over to David.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm David. You can check out my game stuff over at dbb-8.itch.io, including some stuff we played right here on Flights of Fandom. My game In the Dark, a Blades in the Dark hack, is available there for you to download. And you will see it back in action shortly, as that will be the system for our Star Wars flight coming up in May. I am also on Instagram and Twitter at dbrunelbrutman. Very excited for that Star Wars flight coming up. Very excited for BioShock coming up the month after that. And gosh, that same month, we are starting our full-length independent game stream of what was Escape from Arkham and what will now be Streets of Gotham, following our 4 Gotham City henchfolk as they make their way in the criminal underworld of the Batman universe. So stay tuned for more info about that. We'll have a lot of great stuff coming at you soon. And that's it for me.
Brilliant. And finally, Chloe, any plugs? Where can we find you?
Yeah. You can find me at Chloe Sobel on Twitter and Instagram, and fiercefully.itch.io. I have some free games up there, and eventually we'll have, in fact, some Good Society hacks coming to you, hopefully early next month. So, yeah.
Spectacular. And for my part, I would like to shout out Haley Gordon and V. Hendro, the creators of Good Society, who are not just supremely talented game designers, but are also really delightful humans. There's an upcoming Story Brewers Kickstarter for new little box games that look delightful. So look out for that later this month on Kickstarter. And just generally keep abreast of what's happening at Story Brewers. They're always up to something amazing and awesome. And by the same resolve token, I guess, I also want to plug the Story Brewers Discord. It's a fantastic community of folks who love Good Society and love Jane Austen and want to play in the world and play with history. I have met so many wonderful folks through the Discord, including Chloe, actually. So if you love Bridgerton and had fun watching this game and haven't checked it out yet, what are you waiting for? Get on over to the Discord and come hang out with a lot of like-minded people who also love this game and also love that time. So that's it for me. And with that, I think we will close tonight's session formally. Thank you very much, dear readers, for coming along on this, the first of many entrees into the Bridgerton verse. Come back and join us next week to see what these ridiculous characters get up to. I know I can't wait for more juicy drama and barbed conversations and secret reveals of feelings, which are always my favorite thing. So if you like that, which if you're watching this, you probably do, come join us same time, same place next week. We'll be here ready to spin more yarns and spread more gossip. And with that, everyone, I wish you a very good night.